Okay, and we are live. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Align You TV for those that are joining us live and for those of you that are joining us on the replay. Today, we have the beautiful Eliabeth Bykoff, who is going to talk to us about her book, which will be premiering in about 4 weeks' time, called French Landing, on her journey from French student to United States entrepreneur and all the other exciting things that she gets up to. So, Eliabeth, thank you very much for agreeing to come on the show.
No, thanks for having me. We've known each other for a little while, so it's kind of fun to do that with you, actually.
Excellent. Well, I'm just delighted. I know we met a few times before. You spoke about writing the book and getting it done, and you've actually completed it now. So you're going through what we call the book launch sequence. So I'm very excited for you. And today, this is just a chance to find out a little bit more about Eliabeth, her writing process, and a few sneak peeks at some of the stories from the book. So let's dive in and ask Eliabeth a little bit more about how she decided to go on this journey. So Eliabeth, just tell us a little bit about yourself, where you are in the US, and what made you make the decision to write this book, which is called French Landing.
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously, let's get that out of the way. French, born and raised, been in America for over 20 years. So please don't hold that against me. We'll get to it eventually. And I did join the dark side a couple of years back. So I am also an American citizen. So all in good faith. And, I really came, like you said, as a visiting grad student, aerospace engineering, finished that in the US and really wanted to stay and start my career here. So converted to business, never went back to full engineering. And then from there, as you know, you find one job and then the next and you never leave. So it's been, like I said, over 20 years. The book came really during COVID. We were stuck at home and I was part of a Chief women professional network that had just recently started the year before in New York. And all face-to-face events were canceled because of COVID. So we were having webinars, weekly webinars. And one of them one day was about how to draft a non-fictional book proposal. To submit that, obviously, to try to get a book deal and an advance and all that. And two lovely ladies went through, I think, about an hour of explaining to us what it would take, that it was going to be about, you should write about 70 to 100 pages to then find a literary agent to then, potentially get a book deal. And I thought to myself, if I ever write a book, it would be about 150 pages or 200 anyway. So why would I write as many or half of the book just to get a book deal? And so at the end of this webinar, I thought, hey, you know what? I'm just going to write a book. Let's do it. Let's see if I can literally, quote unquote, vomit that many words. I am not at all trained in writing. That was not my forte back in France and French literature. That was not I'm a pure science person. And so it was a bit of a challenge even for myself to say, can you write a book in your non-native language on top of that? And I knew I had to write something. Didn't want to do business, thought it would be boring to yet launch another business book. No offense to all of you that have done it. I'm not there yet. I'm not ready to talk about that. But and I thought, why not talk about my experiences when I came to the US? Like, that's what I've known best. I have plenty of funny stories. I had shared some of them with people before. And that's really how I did it. I just did a bit of research and no point of view from that side. A lot of Americans going to France, as you know, Amanda, right? Sharing their experience with Paris and Provence and you name it, right? But not as much on the other side, a French person coming to the US and sharing that with Americans or even French people. So that was it. I sat down and started writing.
And why particularly now? Why did you choose now? Because I know it's been kind of on your mind for quite a while. Why the last couple of years?
Yeah, the first few chapters, I think COVID really helped. We had nowhere to go, so it was easy to just sit down and in a quiet place and nothing else to do, and let's just write. I had to pause, very honestly, when I took, the second when I was in between jobs. So when I went back to full-time work, it was really difficult for me after a few months to really sit down on weekends and be still back in front of the computer trying to pour myself out. So I paused. I paused and thought, let's take a breather. And at the end of 22, I quit the full-time job, and that kind of allowed me to then be like, hey, this has been on the docket for a while, and I had kept talking about it with people that were really excited and waiting for the book to come out. So that was the motivation to really get it done and really push me to restart. And I had now the the mind share, or the bandwidth to do it. And so I pushed through. And it's funny because it was about maybe coming out last year or coming out this year. And in any cases, it felt very timely anyway, whether pre-election or post-election, if that makes sense. And so, yeah, I think it just ends up, timelier, if I can say that, just because of what's going on and just sharing a different perspective. So.
And I know, being an author or a writer wasn't like it's not your number one profession. You are a business professional. So writing a book isn't always easy. Were there some parts, because it is personal, it's not fiction, were there some parts that were more difficult to write than others?
Absolutely. I wrote it as a beach read. That was always the intent. So anybody could pick it up, just read any chapter. So every chapter is a story, and a comparison between the two cultures. So, dating and school and driving, you name it. And so from that perspective, the chapters for me that were the hardest were the one around religion and politics. And I even took a leap of faith to write about race. And so from that perspective, those topics, as you know, can be a bit tricky in the US and other places in the world. And so these were really the one I needed most help in terms of, really didn't want to come across as judgmental, which really not my intent, and just being mindful and to the sensitivity of both cultures. And that's really, really the chapters that were the hardest for me.
Well, one of the chapters that I found interesting, which I've always found interesting about American culture, because 25 years ago, I was very into Tony Robbins. I was checking out California. I had plans to move to San Diego. Then I dated a guy from New York for a year. So I had this big dream of moving to America as well. And as you know, I ended up marrying someone from Paris. And you obviously you married a Brit as well. So we both got...
We got the opposite. Yeah, we got the opposite.
The absolute opposite. And so dating has always fascinated me, because I come from England and we both come from Europe. And we tend to be like you, the main norm up until recently, until the dating app started, really, was you date one person at a time. Mm-hmm. You give all your energy to one person. If it doesn't work out, you move on. You don't tend to date 15 people at the same time. I think in my life I maybe dated 3 or 4 at the same time, but it felt really alien. So I loved your chapter on the whole dating thing. Is there anything else, any particular story you wanted to share with the audience now on your experience of that as a French lady?
Yeah, I mean, the interesting part was 2 pieces, having women friends in the US that were very, very well versed with the game of dating, I call it, I think, is that 1, you always hedge your bets, and 2, I should have used my French accent at some point to maybe close more deals, let's say that. So these were the 2 things which I talk in the book, that was always very strange to me, of even, okay, you're hedging your bets. I can understand the concept. I just can't understand how you manage it at all. Like, how do you keep the information straight? How do you have time, even mentally, physically? I don't know. But there was also a contradiction, which, I would be the one talking about one date at a time and potentially getting to second or third base faster. But then I was being looked upon as, wow, like you should play harder to get and all that. And I'm like, but wait, you end up sleeping with maybe 3 different guys at the same time. So how is that, better or worse, or, so it was always, again, a contradiction on, hedging your bets, having multiple potentially partners versus some of us, focused on one and going all the way, but somehow there was, I was the quote unquote too easy to get, and they were harder to get, and same outcome at the end, I guess. That was always very interesting.
It's funny you mentioned that, because my husband watched Les Petites Anglaises, which is a film about young boys going to England, and it was shot, I think, in the late 70s, early 80s. So he said when he watched that, he always wanted to potentially have an English girlfriend, because apparently we're a little bit more amenable than the French ladies. So I
Oh,
think that's quite
there
interesting
you go.
that you said the opposite. But yeah, you know, America has a very, very different style. And like you say, it's up until we visit there, a lot of what we see is from the television. What would you say is the biggest difference culturally? Your favorite part in the book, which it does show the biggest cultural difference, which again maybe surprise you or might be your favorite one in terms of the biggest cultural difference between US and France.
I think, well, two parts. Again, I think one of the chapter that's towards the end of the book is around cursing, which, you know, you watch the silver screen and TV shows back home and everybody's cursing and F-bomb this, F-bomb that. And, you know, you come to the US and depending on where you live in the country, very different states, very different cultures too. It's not the same at all. Where, you know, we use a lot of curse word actually in France from really early on. I don't know if, you know, Frank shared that with you, but we do get, some of them are not as bad, right? It's just almost slang. But, you know, there is a bit of that culture of, you know, throwing those words in there, but not as much. We don't have the equivalent of F-bomb, right? Like you can pretty much put anywhere, by the way, in your sentence or your after or before a word. And so you start and you just think, oh, wow, like this is normal. Like everybody curse in movies. Like that's a common thing. And obviously it's a stereotype, right? So you discover that and you have to learn. And I had to learn quickly because I ended up being known as the F-bomb lady at work, which is interesting because, you know, I'm the French lady, not the F-bomb lady. But somehow as I grew into the firm and became more comfortable, I would, you know, slip one to not to insult absolutely not anybody, but it was more as a figure of speech, let's say. And so I ended up being called that, which I thought was very interesting, knowing that, like being in the middle of the country, that's the F-bomb country in a way. So that's one of the things that was very, one of the very big difference, I think, or stereotypes that we get to see on the silver screen. That's absolutely not accurate when you get into the country. So.
And writing the book, again, I know for me, mine was a nonfiction book. So when we're putting a nonfiction book out there, there are a lot of questions that go through our head, as in, how is this going to be received? How much do I put in there? How vulnerable am I? And I know you put some information there about first boyfriends and again, some vulnerable information in there. So when you were writing the book, were there any points where you kind of went, oh, I'm not sure if I want to release this, or maybe I shouldn't put that in, especially for other authors out there that consider going down the same path as you? What were the parts that were a little bit maybe, you weren't sure if you wanted to write them or even wanted to release them?
More the intimacy pieces, and then some of the work related stories or things that happened to me. Again, I am not citing any names in the book on purpose. I think if anybody that knows me picks up the book that were in those stories with me can figure out whether it's them or not. I mean, it's pretty obvious. And so I really didn't want to offend anybody. That, it's definitely not something I wanted to do, but that's, again, this is what I experience, and it's mainly my point of view. It's not their point of view. To be very, very clear, they might have a completely different point of view of the story of what happened, but I had to really just say, hey, you know what? I'm just going to put it out there, and hopefully I won't piss off anybody. But that's what came through my head when I was living those things. And it's been interesting to put it on paper. So yeah, some hesitation, to be honest. Less of those were worrying me more than, this is the theme of the last few years, like being canceled in the sense of anything being taken out of context and potentially offending some of the readers. That was more, worrisome to me than maybe the intimacy scenes or what I was thinking when it happened. I have been sharing the book with some previous coworkers that were asking for it, and I think I'll share that with you. I'm sure it's going to be TMI. Maybe that's not information they wanted to learn about me, but it's out there. You wanted the book, it's Soul or Nothing, so you skipped a chapter. if you don't want to, right? Yeah, I mean, there's always gonna pieces that you wonder if you should, but I think if you try to be as authentic and genuine, and it's really not about, it's really not judgmental. You're not trying to put anybody down. I think the best thing is to be yourself and write what's, almost like the unfiltered, as much as you can, feelings that you had and what it meant for you. And I think that's okay. It's acceptable.
Well, I think these days people are looking for authenticity. So, if, as a publisher and editor, I would just encourage that vulnerability to really connect with people, because people really need to hear what the reality is. They need to hear that it wasn't always easy. They need to see, like, both sides of the fence, as it were. And that, as you are technically an author now, in the Amazon sense, what advice would you give to other people that have a similar story to you, that may want to go out there and write their own book? What would you say to them?
Do it.
Do it. That's a nice, easy answer.
Just do it. I know it's the Nike slogan now, if they still use it, but I think there will always be doubt. Do I know how to write? Don't know how to write? Is my story important or interesting? I think everybody has an important and or interesting story, right? Some people could be completely different. For me, it was coming into the US, but it doesn't even have to be somebody coming into the US. It can be coming to another country, or some challenges, work, life, profession. It doesn't really matter. I think the thing I would say is not to overthinking. I think, again, you're not, at least when you're writing non-fictional, for me, it was, it's not like I had to define a plot and characters and, like, oh la la, I need to make sure the timeline works, that I'm not, I envision, fiction writers to have these board in their walls and, with all the spaghettis of like following all the plots and the tangents and all that. Like, we don't have to do as much, I guess, when we do nonfiction. And so I would just say, start writing, start recording yourself. Somebody recently said, hey, if you're going to write a second book, maybe start recording like a journal, so that's material when you come back, depending on what you're going to write next. So just start writing, to be honest. And I think it comes to you, and hopefully you enjoy it. Don't do it if, it's like a burden. That's not fun. It has to be at least fun. But really just getting, actually, it's interesting, creativity, birth creativity. I don't know if that makes sense what I'm saying, but
yes.
You got to get started, and when you're in it, usually it gets easier, right? It gets easier, and so but you got to get started. If you don't get started, then that virtuous circle never starts. So I would say, just do it. Even if you don't publish it, do it.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I've done 3 books now, and each time, I wouldn't say I'm a perfectionist, but every time I read it, there's always a section where I go, oh, I could have written that better. And it's constant, never-ending improvement. I learned that you've got to get the book to the point where you've just got to let it go. You've just got to get it out there. I've been rewriting and writing my 4th one for such a long time now. It hasn't downloaded like the other 3 do. So again, for anybody that's just thinking about it, like Elizabeth said, just start. And a lot of people aren't good at, or don't think they're good at writing. So like you say, you record it. There's so many AI tools out there, literally, to help you do it. So there's no excuses now to get your story out, and your story will touch people, and it will be a message of your own accord. So make sure that you do get your book written. What would you say? I know that you've got the book that's already the pre stuff is done in Amazon now. So just tell us a little bit about when it's going to launch exactly, so that people can get their hands on it, Elizabeth.
Yeah. So it's already available for pre-order on Amazon, print, ebook, and audiobook. That was fun, actually. If you think about doing an audiobook, do it also yourself. It's really, really fun. And it will be available on May 20th, released on May 20th. So it's exciting. And we're working on putting it on other platforms too. So if you're an Apple user, or, some of the other platforms out there, we're working on making sure it's available on those platforms too.
Excellent. Well, I've just posted in the link. It seems to have done it like 3 million times, but I will post it underneath this video for those of you that want to do the pre-order from Amazon. It will be underneath this video with Elizabeth's information. So just to kind of finish off, Elizabeth, what is the main message, the main thing that you would love your readers to get away? We all have our own interpretation of the book, but what would be your main message that you would love them to get from this interview and potentially the book?
Yeah. 3 pieces. Follow your dreams. This was my dream, moving to the US and experiencing part of the culture, getting assimilated, if I can say that. It took twists and turns. I don't think when I first landed, I thought I would be where I'm at today at all. But it's not bad. It's just what it is, right? It's life, really. So follow your dreams, no matter what they are. I think the second is around, it's not easy to immigrate to the US, despite what people say. Americans are extremely lucky to already be in the country and be born and raised here, especially legally. It's not that easy. And it's just not that easy to assimilate to the culture. It's a very contradicting culture, really great things, but everything has, both sides, right, of the coin. And so for some of us coming from outside, not born and raised here, it takes time to really understand all the corners, all the states, all the subtleties. So please be kind to your fellow immigrants. We are trying to learn. We're learning every day, but it's still 20 years and I'm still learning. So it's not that easy. And I think the last is resilience, right? I think, despite the stories I'm sharing in the book, yes, there could have been time I could have turned around and say, okay, this is not at all what I expected, or why is it so difficult? Or why some obstacles, is it because I'm French? Is it, what is it? And I think at the end of the day, it's really around like pushing, like if you're chasing your dream, back to following your dream, if you're chasing it, twists and turns will be there, but like resilience is a big thing. And it's not always easy. Don't get me wrong, right? You go through peaks and valleys, but I think hopefully that's also a story of resilience. And it took me 20 years to become a citizen. Actually, it took me 40 years to become a citizen because my parents wanted me to be born here. So I had to find my way to finally say, parents, I made it. What you wanted for me when I was born. Took me 40 years, but I did it. So resilience, I would say, is the last message where it's worth it. No matter what you're going for, it's worth it. So go for it.
Thank you for that. Just really quickly before we sign off, in the book as well, it does say that Elizabeth's mum was pregnant and they were supposed to be in the United States when she was born, but a French gynecologist said that it wasn't safe to travel over to the States where Elizabeth was technically going to be born. So it's just funny how destiny works out. Even though she wasn't born there, she still ended up there. So your path was already destined to be in the United States. So on that lovely note, I just want to thank you again, Elizabeth, for coming. You've got another month to go until it goes completely live. So congratulations in advance for that. And obviously we'll be on this channel and other social media. I'll be letting people know when it comes out by email. So again, if you're interested in buying the book, please do pre-order it from Amazon. The link will be down here below. Elizabeth, thanks again for your insights, your inspiration, and those 3 points of, I think it was resilience, follow your dreams, and kind of acceptance and tolerance, I think was the second one. Is that about right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Brilliant. Great messages for today's moment. That's going to be appreciated, and hopefully that will be well received all around the world. So thank you for tuning into Align You TV, and we will see Elizabeth on the next step in her journey. Take care, everyone, and see you very soon. Bye for now. See ya.